Hello, today we're going to talk about writing narrative essays. So, when you think narrative essay, the first thing that you're probably thinking is about the word narrative. What does that mean? It means to tell a story. And so, this essay is about you telling a story about you. Typically, I start with the narrative essay because of all the topics, you should know yourself best. And so you should be able to pull down a memory either in the distant past or very recently that somehow made an impact on you. I typically teach from a peace and social justice perspective, and so I ask you to first think about instances of social injustice or personal injustice that you've experienced to write about, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be about um, a time when things shifted for you, changed for better or for worse, and you talking about that experience. People write about a lot of things. They write about family situations, big moves that they've had in their lives, transitioning from one school to another, um, personal injuries they've experienced, or things that they have not personally experienced but they witnessed up close, whether that's bullying or the first time they experienced or saw sexism or racism or xenophobia at play. And so when you are writing a narrative, you have to think about a couple of things. The first thing is, what story do I want to tell? And how can I tell this story concisely and in a way that engages the reader and doesn't confuse them? Um, so, in order for you to tell a good story, you have to think about the literary elements that are used from any good storyteller. One, it's engaging. Typically, there's some passionate. It's passionate. Usually, there's a strong, clear voice, and we see the perspective of the person who is telling the story. There is vivid language and keen description, lots of details. Instead of saying the woman passed by, you could say the elderly gray haired woman limped by, and it was clear that she was missing her cane, and she seemed to be in a lot of pain. That's different from the lady walked by, right? We're better able to understand um, this woman and her experience. Help us to see the story, to hear the story, to understand the story. In order to do that, you need to use sensory details. All right, so feel, taste, touch, sight, right? What did you hear while this was going on? What were you experiencing or feeling in your body as it occurred? What, if you saw this thing play out before you, what exactly did you see? Don't say, I remember this night vividly and we were all at the table eating dinner. How about, I remember this vividly. My father was cooking his famous roti with stewed curry or stewed curry lamb. And I helped him out in the kitchen by chopping up the onions and the pepper, but the scent of curry made my stomach growl. All right, so give us more details than we were eating dinner and there was food on the table. What types? What were the smells? What was the taste like? How did people respond to it? So give us more, just like any good piece of fiction or even nonfiction. If it's a story that you've read and it's good and it's riveting and pulled you in, it's because of the imagery. It's because of the description. So you have to replicate that in the story that you're telling. Otherwise, it seems too generalized and often it is not engaging to the reader. Also, the second part is not only telling a good story and figuring out a story with the three parts, beginning, middle, and end. You are also telling us about how things changed. What was the shift in the story? What was the learning moment? Okay, so when we are writing about our memories, there has to be some sort of lesson or better understanding that's coming out of the story. Otherwise, why are you telling it? All right, we don't want to hear about you and your friends playing softball yesterday, and we all had a good time and we sweat a little and go team. So what? It's boring, and there is no lesson attached. But if you're telling a story about how every day when you came to this park, there were other people playing softball, and at first you are being territorial over the space, and you were upset because you all never got to play because they monopolized everything. And then one of you all had the good sense to go over and introduce yourselves to the individuals playing, and you joined together with them to play together and made it a win-win situation for everybody. And how you learned that sometimes it's just about effective communication and people being willing to share, and that you can not assume that people have bad intentions, but that you have to get to the core of the matter. And that usually means going to talk to people and seeing them as human and trusting the goodness within them and that they want to do the right thing. If that's the takeaway moment, then that's a good story, right? Because we're learning something as we're walking away from the story, and not just a story for story's sake. So there are sample student essays, and I want you to view those. I want you to look at the narrative essay assignment for you to see the different things that are expected from you. And I also want you to look at the rubric so you can know exactly how you're being assessed. You're always being assessed on focus, development, organization, and style. Also, do your reading around crafting strong narrative essays, and reach out to me or the tutoring center for any additional support you might need. Good luck. Tell a great story.